Record waiting times in A&E. Ambulances waiting for hours to unload their patients. Millions on lists for treatment and NHS strikes imminent. You may well have seen for yourself the immense pressure the health service is under. Well, tonight we bring you a warning from one GP that the NHS is collapsing, that this winter it really is reaching crisis point. It comes as the government sets out its big strategy to tackle COVID backlogs, but the problems keep stacking up, as Simon Viger reports.
Hello, good morning, surgery. How can I help?
At the Tredegar surgery in London's East End, it's just another morning of trying to keep up. One of the most experienced GPs here believes the NHS is fighting for its life.
I think the NHS is collapsing. I think the NHS is in the biggest crisis in its history. We've got fewer doctors, fewer nurses. The NHS has got, I think, over 10% staff vacancies at the moment. And there are some places in the country where they're almost working entirely on agency and bank staff.
Horror stories about ambulance waiting times are common. In Ludlow, when baby Myla had a seizure, they waited more than half an hour for help.
We found that the bottleneck and the crisis is throughout the whole system, not just within the ambulance service. It is terrifying to know that when you need an ambulance, that one isn't coming or that one is going to take hours to get to you. And even then, when you do get to hospital, you could have a wait of up to 10 hours on the ambulance when you arrive.
And that's before the strikes. The Department of Health in England today launched a task force to cut waiting times for elective surgery. But a lot of the talk is about strikes and whether army medics and drivers will be deployed.
Clearly we will need contingency measures in terms of those calls that the trade unions are not willing to cover during the strike, and those are usually the Category 3, Category 4 calls. We'll put in place a range of contingency measures, and obviously the Army is part of that discussion.
Talk of a winter crisis may seem over the top to some, but for many in the NHS, it is a daily reality and the justification for going on strike.
I started out in the early 90s, and it was hard work then. It was definitely hard work, but I never felt it was unsafe back then. I feel now that it's unsafe. I come to work in the morning and I think, I don't know that by the end of the day I'm going to be safe. I don't know that whether I'm going to have so much to do today that I can get through it properly. And I also don't know that there will be the places for me to hand things on.
How it's funded and staffed and the balance of private and public are questions for all us voters. Those about to strike say clapping on doorsteps only goes so far. Simon Viger, 5 News.